My wife slept with the guy who ruined my business, and that's not all. I never thought I'd be back on here, but I guess life has a way of hitting the same bruise twice. My name's Alex, I'm 38, and 5 years ago my life blew up when a hotshot corporate lawyer named Daniel Knox filed a bogus lawsuit against my company. Said I'd breached a contract, spread lies in the industry, all of it fabricated to make room for one of his clients' businesses to take my place. It worked. My business collapsed, my reputation tanked, and I went from being the guy with a thriving team of 40 to a guy begging for contract work to make rent. The only silver lining back then was my wife, Melissa. She was my rock, or so I thought. She'd tell me, "You'll bounce back, babe. You're too smart to stay down." My parents, Dad's an old-school mechanic, Mom's a retired nurse, said they'd never seen a woman stand by someone like that. My sister Jenna even told me Melissa was Wife of the Year for how she kept the house running while I tried to rebuild. Fast forward to now. I've got a modest but stable business back on its feet. Not what I had before, but I can look people in the eye again. I even started to believe that maybe the Daniel Knox chapter of my life was closed. Then last month, Melissa said she wanted to take me to dinner at my favorite steakhouse to celebrate us. She made it sound like a date night. But when we got there, she had a surprise, some friends were joining. And that's when she waved over Daniel Knox. I swear my brain glitched for a second when I saw him walking toward our table. Same smug grin, same expensive suit, same guy who tanked my business and my name half a decade ago. Melissa stood up, all smiles, and hugged him like they were old friends. "Alex, this is Daniel. I've told you about him. He's one of my new connections from the Chamber of Commerce." Connections. That's how she framed it. He shook my hand with that firm, performative grip lawyers love, looking me right in the eye like he was waiting for me to flinch. I didn't, but I could feel my pulse in my neck. We sat down, and Melissa made a show of telling our waiter that Daniel's order should be on our tab tonight. She laughed at every one of his stories, touched his arm when she talked, and even told my friends, the ones I'd invited here countless times before, how brilliant Daniel's legal mind was. Brilliant. This was the man who buried me under paperwork and legal fees until I had no fight left. I barely spoke through dinner. I kept sipping my bourbon, just watching the two of them. The way she leaned in when he talked, the way her eyes lit up when he teased her about something, the way she ignored me completely. By dessert, my friends were exchanging glances. They knew my history with this guy. Hell, my brother Nate texted me from across the table. "WTF is happening? Is she serious right now?" When the check came, Melissa insisted on paying. Because this is about building bridges. All I could think was, she didn't just cross a bridge. She burned mine to the ground and is having dessert with the arsonist. After that dinner, something in Melissa shifted, or maybe I just started noticing what had been there all along. She suddenly had networking events 3 nights a week. Always dressed to kill, sleek dresses, expensive perfume, heels that made her 2 inches taller and 10 times louder when she walked across our hardwood floors. When I asked who she was meeting, she'd rattle off vague names from the Chamber of Commerce, but somehow Daniel's name always slipped in. "Oh, Daniel might be there." Or, "Daniel said I should meet this client." Like she was just dropping it casually. Her phone became a permanent extension of her hand. She'd angle it away when I walked into the room, or get up and pace in the kitchen if she was on a call. Once, I caught a glimpse of a text bubble from DK, with a winking emoji and the words, "Next time, no interruptions, winky face." I didn't confront her right then, partly because I wanted to be sure, partly because I knew Melissa. She was quick on her feet with excuses, and she had this way of turning any accusation into an attack on me. But I started watching more closely. She'd come home smelling like a mix of cologne and wine, with her lipstick faded just enough to make me wonder who she'd been leaning into. Her laugh had changed, too, softer, lower, the same way she laughed at Daniel's stories over dinner. And the kicker? She started talking about him like he was doing me a favor. Daniel's actually really nice if you get to know him, she said one night over dinner. You should let go of the past, Alex. Holding on to grudges isn't healthy. Yeah, well, either is sleeping with the guy who wrecked your husband's life. The proof came on a Thursday night when she claimed she was going to a late committee meeting at the chamber. I was half tempted to follow her, but fate made it easier. We share a family iCloud account, her idea, back when she was all about transparency. She must have forgotten it still synced photos automatically. Around 10:15 p.m. my iPad lit up with a new photo notification. It was Melissa. Sitting in the back seat of a black SUV, hair down, red lipstick smudged just slightly, holding a glass of champagne. The angle wasn't a selfie, someone else had taken it. A few minutes later, another photo popped up. This time, she was in a hotel room. Same dress, but the straps were sliding off her shoulders, and her hand was reaching out toward whoever had the camera. Then came the text messages, synced from her iMessage to the iPad. From DK. You looked incredible tonight. Wish we didn't have to wait until next week for round 2. Her reply. We'll make up for lost time, winky face. I felt my stomach twist, but I kept scrolling. There were more flirty messages, innuendos, little references to that night at the Ritz. And then the one that really hit me. Crazy to think I used to only know you as the guy's wife. The guy. That's me. I didn't just save the screenshots, I backed them up to multiple drives. Dates, times, images, everything. Because I knew when I confronted her, she'd lie through her teeth. But this time, I wasn't giving her an inch to wriggle out. I waited until Saturday morning. She was in the kitchen making coffee, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. I set my iPad down on the counter between us, screen lit up with the hotel photo, straps off her shoulders, champagne in hand. Want to explain this? I asked. She glanced at it, then back at me, completely unfazed. Oh my God, Alex, are you seriously snooping through my stuff? Melissa, the photo is synced to our shared account. You knew that. Who took it? She gave me this tired, patronizing sigh. It was just Daniel. We were celebrating a business deal. I had a wardrobe malfunction, and it was funny, so he snapped a picture. I pointed to the text I'd pulled up. Funny? Is can't wait for round 2 part of the punchline? Her face didn't even twitch. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Daniel and I have chemistry, sure, but it's harmless. You're still obsessed with what happened 5 years ago, and it's poisoning our marriage. That's when I felt something inside me click. She wasn't going to admit a thing. She was going to gaslight me until I was the villain. You've been sleeping with the guy who destroyed my business, I said, my voice shaking now, not from fear, but from rage. You took him to my favorite restaurant. You introduced him to my friends. And you think I'm the problem? Melissa crossed her arms, leaned back against the counter, and smirked. If you'd been half as focused on me as you were on your business, maybe I wouldn't have needed someone like him. That line burned into me. I walked out before I said something I'd regret, but I knew right then, this wasn't going to end in another shouting match. This was going to end with me burying them both. After that kitchen scene, I couldn't let it go. It wasn't just the affair, it was him. The one person who nearly destroyed me, now sharing a bed with my wife. So I started digging. I went through old emails, text backups, even my archived business files from 5 years ago. And that's when I found it, a string of emails between Melissa and an address I didn't recognize at first. The domain matched Daniel's old law firm. The dates lined up exactly with the months before the lawsuit hit. In one, she'd forwarded him internal client lists that were never public, the same ones Daniel's clients somehow got hold of to poach my contracts. In another, she was telling him when I'd be out of town, when big deals were closing, even complaining about my stubbornness in negotiations. And then there was the smoking gun. If you go through with this, he'll never see it coming. He's too proud to believe I'd help you. 5 years. 5 years of believing she stood by me while I rebuilt from ashes, and she'd been the one handing him the matches. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like I'd swallowed glass. It wasn't just betrayal, it was sabotage. She didn't just cheat on me now, she'd been cheating on me then, in the most calculated way possible. And suddenly, every sacrifice I'd made for her since, the late nights working 2 jobs, the dinners skipped so she could network, the way I kept quiet about my resentment, all of it felt like a setup. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to make sure when I did, she'd wish she'd never met either of us. The rage was white-hot at first, but I forced myself to cool it. If I went off half-cocked, she'd spin it, cry victim, maybe even paint me as unstable. No, this had to be clean, undeniable, and so public that neither of them could crawl out of it. I started by locking down my finances. Froze the joint account, moved my personal savings to an account in just my name, and rerouted all business income away from anything she had access to. Quietly changed the passwords to my email, cloud storage, and even the security cameras at the house. Next, I compiled everything: the hotel selfies, the champagne shots, the texts, and most importantly, those 5-year-old emails where she helped Daniel gut my company. I kept multiple copies, including one on a flash drive hidden in my desk at work. Then I started watching their movements. Melissa had gotten sloppy, checking in on social media at client events that just happened to be in the same neighborhoods Daniel frequented. I knew his schedule too. The man loved to show off his expensive dinners and wine tastings online. That's when I remembered the upcoming charity gala. Melissa had been gushing about it for weeks. Her networking Super Bowl, packed with half the city's business and legal elite. Daniel was a confirmed sponsor. It would be perfect. I pictured it, the two of them, smiling for photos, basking in the spotlight, and then the spotlight turning into a searchlight, exposing every filthy detail. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted a surgical strike. And I already had my target date circled on the calendar. Melissa couldn't stop talking about the gala, the dress she was having custom tailored, the table she'd scored near the stage, how Daniel had pulled strings to get her listed as an official event coordinator. I played the part of the supportive husband perfectly. Smiled at the right times, asked about the guest list, even offered to cover the cost of her dress. Inside, I was counting down the days. In the week leading up to it, I refined my evidence package. I organized the files into a neat slideshow. Slide 1, news headline from 5 years ago about my company's breach of contract case. Slide 2, emails between Melissa and Daniel during the months leading up to the lawsuit. Slide 3, the internal client list she'd sent him. Slide 4 to 6, recent texts and hotel selfies, complete with timestamps and geotags. Final slide, a photo of the two of them at my favorite restaurant, the night she introduced him to my friends, captioned, "Full circle." I scheduled the slideshow to email out at exactly 8:15 p.m. when the keynote speeches were wrapping up and everyone's phones would be back in their hands. Recipients included her parents, my family, several of her colleagues, and just for flavor, a couple of mutual friends known for gossip. On the night of the gala, I put on my best suit and played the doting partner. I took photos of her at the table, brought her drinks, even complimented Daniel's impressive sponsorship. The more comfortable they felt, the sweeter it was going to be when I pulled the trigger. By 8:10, they were both in their element, laughing, working the room, oblivious. At 8:15, I felt my phone buzz with the sent confirmation. The match had been lit. It started small, a couple of people glancing down at their phones, then looking back up with tight faces. One woman across the table from me raised her eyebrows so high I thought they'd disappear into her hairline. Then came the whispers. Chairs shifting. The subtle thunk of wine glasses being set down a little too hard. Melissa was mid-laugh at something Daniel said when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I watched the color drain from her face like someone had pulled the plug. Her jaw tightened, her eyes flicked to me for half a second, and then she locked her phone and forced a smile. Daniel checked his phone next. His smirk faltered. He muttered something to Melissa, and they both shifted in their seats like they were suddenly sitting on nails. Meanwhile, my brother Nate, 2 tables away, caught my eye and gave me this slow, approving nod. My sister Jenna texted me, "You just became a family legend." And then the whispers became a murmur. People were showing each other their screens. One of Melissa's closest friends, the type who lives for drama, was already pulling others aside, pointing at the emails from 5 years ago. By dessert, the room had split into 2 camps, those pretending nothing was happening, and those who couldn't stop glancing between me, Melissa, and Daniel like we were the evening's entertainment. Melissa excused herself to the bathroom and didn't come back for 20 minutes. When she finally returned, she barely spoke. Daniel had already slipped out, leaving her to face the music alone. I ordered another scotch and enjoyed the rest of the night. The Uber ride home was dead silent. Melissa sat on her side of the back seat, arms crossed, staring out the window like she was the victim of some random act of God. The second we got inside, she spun around. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You humiliated me in front of my colleagues, my family." I cut her off. "No, Melissa. You humiliated yourself. I just handed them the truth." She tried the classic tearful plea next, voice shaking just enough to seem rehearsed. "Alex, we can fix this. We've been through worse." "Worse?" I laughed, and it came out sharper than I meant. "You were feeding him my business secrets while we were married. That wasn't just cheating, that was treason." Her eyes narrowed, the act gone. "You're just bitter because he's more successful than you. Maybe if you hadn't tanked your own business." That's when I slid the manila envelope across the coffee table. "Divorce papers. Already signed my part. And Melissa? You have 2 weeks to get your stuff out." She didn't touch the envelope, just glared like she wanted to set me on fire. "You're going to regret this. Not as much as you will." That night I slept at Nate's. By morning, I'd frozen our joint account, locked her out of all my business files, and called my lawyer to make sure every piece of property in my name stayed there. The war wasn't just over, I'd already won. The divorce moved fast, thanks to my lawyer, and the prenup I'd insisted on back when I still thought it was just being responsible. Melissa fought it at first, demanded spousal support, tried to claim part of my new business, but every time her lawyer sent some ridiculous request, mine would send back the evidence packet. Those emails from 5 years ago were the nuclear option. The second they were mentioned in a legal context, she went quiet. I think she knew that if those ever saw a courtroom, her life would be scorched earth. 2 months later, it was done. No alimony. No stake in my business. No claim on the house, which I promptly put on the market just to get rid of the memories. She got her clothes, her designer shoes, and a leased Audi in her name. That was it. The day the papers were signed, I transferred my business accounts to a new bank, updated my company branding, and took my team out for drinks. We toasted to new beginnings, and for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying her dead weight on my back. I thought I'd feel empty after cutting her out. Instead, it felt like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. And I wasn't just going to breathe, I was going to fly. Once the ink was dry, I shifted my focus to one thing, making my life completely mine again. First move, new workspace. I rented a loft downtown, turned half of it into my office and the other half into a casual lounge where clients could relax. No corporate conference table nonsense, just leather chairs, good coffee, and a view of the skyline. The kind of place where you could actually have a conversation without feeling like someone was checking their watch. Second move, I went back to the gym, hard. Not just for looks, but because I wanted my energy back. Within a couple of months, I dropped the stress weight, started sleeping better, and felt sharper in every meeting I walked into. And then the rumors started trickling in. Jenna texted me one night. "You're gonna love this. Melissa's not with Daniel anymore. She got cut from some event committee and lost a big client. Karma's working overtime." A week later, Nate sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post. Melissa selling designer bags. Gently used. For cash. I'd be lying if I said I didn't smile. Not because I wanted her broke, but because it confirmed what I already knew: people like her can't hold it together without someone else propping them up. Meanwhile, my business had its best quarter yet. I was booking clients through referrals alone. I even took a week off to go hiking in Colorado, something she used to say was a waste of time. Because it wasn't. Networking. Turns out, you can network just fine when you're standing on top of a mountain. It hit me one Friday night when I was sitting on the balcony of my loft, sipping a bourbon, city lights flickering below. No phone blowing up with passive-aggressive texts. No dread about what lie I'd have to swallow over dinner. Just quiet. I'd forgotten how good quiet could feel. That weekend, I went to a local art show, something I never would have done with Melissa because she'd have spent the whole time judging everyone's clothes. I wandered into a photography exhibit and ended up chatting with the artist, a woman named Harper. She had this calm confidence, like she didn't need to fill every silence with noise. We talked for almost an hour about travel, about the kind of people you meet on the road, about the weird little moments you can only catch with a camera. When I mentioned my business and how I'd rebuilt it, she didn't ask for numbers or connections. She just said, "That must have taken a lot of grit." It was the first time in years someone had complimented me without an agenda. We swapped numbers. No pressure, no instant plans. Just the idea that maybe, when I was ready, there could be something there. Walking back to my loft, I realized I hadn't thought about Melissa or Daniel once during that conversation. That was my first real taste of freedom, when your past isn't part of your present unless you invite it in. And I wasn't inviting either of them ever again. It was Nate again who delivered the news. He called me on a random Tuesday afternoon, laughing before I even picked up. "You're gonna like this one," he said. "Melissa's circling the drain. Word is she tried to land some consulting gig with one of Daniel's old contacts, but the guy straight up told her she's bad for optics. Apparently Daniel had bailed months ago, traded her in for some 20-something paralegal, and now she was burning through whatever savings she had left. The Audi got repossessed. She moved into a smaller apartment on the edge of town. Nate sent me a photo someone had grabbed at a charity event. She looked worn. The kind of tired that doesn't wash off with a good night's sleep. And here's the thing, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel pity either. I felt nothing. I realized I'd been chasing that moment, thinking I'd only feel free when she finally fell apart. But the truth was, I'd already been free for months. Her downfall was just background noise. That night, Harper texted me about grabbing coffee the next morning. I said yes without hesitation, and when I hung up my phone, it hit me. I was finally living in a story that had nothing to do with her. Melissa could fade into the crowd now. She was just another stranger in the city. If you told me 5 years ago, hell, even 1 year ago, that I'd be here now, I wouldn't have believed you. Back then, I thought the worst thing Daniel Knox ever did to me was that lawsuit. Turns out, the real damage was the person I shared my bed with every night. Melissa didn't just cheat, she infiltrated. She sat across from me at dinner, nodded along while I talked about rebuilding, and all the while she'd been the one pulling bricks out from under me. That kind of betrayal gets into your bones. It makes you question if you're even worth loyalty. But here's what I learned, and it's not some Hallmark crap about forgiveness. The lesson is this: you don't get over people like that by waiting for them to pay. You get over them by building a life so far removed from theirs that their opinion, their existence, doesn't factor into your choices anymore. The revenge? Sure, it felt good to scorch the earth. I won't pretend it didn't. Watching them squirm at that gala will always be a 5-star memory. But the real win was signing those divorce papers, selling the house, and waking up every day knowing my life was mine. If anyone reading this is in that sick, gut-punch stage where you're still hoping the person who betrayed you will wake up and realize what they've lost, stop. Don't wait for their epiphany. They're not coming to save you. Save yourself. Build your own damn rescue. And if you play it right, One day you'll look around and realize they're not even worth the air they take up in your head. That's when you've really won. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.